Wolfpack Villas here, and this is how to use Mega Medicham. Mega Medicham is a very strong Pokemon, and one of my favorite Megas to use personally. That with the Pure Power ability, you're pushing your stats to around 225 attack for base, and then when you add in your EVs and stuff, it just shows that you have a ton of potential power on this Pokemon. That it also gets a decent amount of defenses and a good amount of speed. Look at its typing, it's a Fighting Psychic typing. Very unusual typing, but it does have a couple of common weaknesses that with the introduction of Fairy typing, Fighting got that little bit of a nerf, and then you're also still weak against Flying, and you have that Ghost weakness because of Psychic. But the Fighting does cancel out the Dark, which is pretty nice as well. Now you also do get a resistance to Rock and Fighting, and pretty much the biggest problem that this Pokemon has to worry about is Talonflame. It's going to get that outspeed, it's going to hit with a monstrous Brave Bird, and there's nothing that Medicham can do about that. If we hop into Pokemon Showdown, we can kind of get a really cool idea of how this Pokemon works. That when we look at stats 328, that's getting doubled, so it's like giving yourself a free Swords Dance because of the pure power, and that's putting you over 650 attack. Now when you're using a move like High Jump Kick, which has a base power of 130, you pretty much neutral one-hit KO almost everything in the game, which is why I think Medicham is really awesome. That it has a little bit of bulk, so it's a 2-3 hit KO kind of Pokemon, and it's just going to touch your opponent and they die. You also have a good amount of coverage out from there that you can lead off with Fake Out. It's going to be a good disrupt, and it's also just going to provide a little bit of extra. Zen Headbutt's going to be some nice coverage, and then Thunder Punch. I like the idea for Thunder Punch just because it's going to hit those flying type Pokemon which resist your main move, and it's going to give you that super effective hit. So that's why I carry Thunder Punch instead of Ice Punch or Fire Punch. Generally, Dragon type Pokemon are going to take a solid neutral from Zen Headbutt or High Jump Kick, and it's not really going to matter. Some of you guys might be wondering, why just 64 EVs in the speed? It seems like a very odd number, but it actually does make a lot of sense. If you look at Medicham itself, that it has a base 80 speed, neutral is going to put you at 212 speed at level 100, and that's also going to put you at, wait for it, 108 at level 50. So then when we do this to Rotom, Rotom is at 208 at level 100, and then 50 at level 50, it's going to have that 106. I just like to give it a couple extra points just in case someone specs 4 into Rotom. That way you're still going to get that outspeed no matter what. Now the cool thing about Mega Medicham is that when it's at max attack with that Adamant Nature, with that little bit of speed investment, regular Medicham is going to have the outspeed on the turn it Mega Evolves, and then it's going to one-hit KO Rotom Wash most of the time. Like, depending on how super invested into defense Rotom is, it's still going to have a very high chance of KOing. So I just kind of have it as my anti-lead, that people lead with Rotom in singles or doubles, that this Pokemon just crushes it out, and you can get a free super amount of advantage. That leading with Mega Medicham, from my experience, has been one of the best things because it just eliminates a lot of Pokemon. That Fake Out into a hit is generally going to take out any wall or any slow setup Pokemon. Because, I mean, High Jump Kick one hits Ferrothorn, High Jump Kick one hits Garchomp, High Jump Kick one hits almost anything. So if you can get a good prediction, you can just get a straight up one hit KO, or if you can Fake Out to break a Sash or Sturdy and go into other setup, Medicham just like ruins anyone's opening unless it's a Talonflame or something that just outright KOs it with super speed and super effective hits. So by only minimally investing into speed, I'm still getting a lot of investment into hit points, and because I have the base on the 80s, I do get a decent amount of mileage out of my defenses from it, and the coverage just gets really awesome. Now other things that you can run on Mega Medicham, Bullet Punch. Bullet Punch, I've seen to have about as much use as Fake Out. That Fake Out is good for the disruption, but really it's just nice having the priority. So sometimes you might want to use Bullet Punch multiple times, just because things happen like that the opponent's going to be faster, so you might want to get that extra chip damage in, or they switched out a Pokemon with low health early, and then when they bring it back in, it's just good to be able to follow that up really well. Now, a couple things to note about Medicham. Really, it's all about the speed. That if you outspeed as Medicham, you win. So Sticky Web is the way to go. Some kind of way of lowering your opponent's speed, or some kind of way of like baton passing speed into Medicham, and then you become an almost unstoppable force because you have options for everything. So yeah, that's kind of it. Like, the main set I've looked at with the Medicham, this just works out to be the best option. That High Jump Kick still has high KO potential and everything. You don't need to run Fire Punch. You don't have to worry about many other things, and you have a high survival rate. Other than that, you can run it in doubles. Doubles has good with Fake Out. It also does good with Bullet Punch. Supporting it really well just sets up really good KOs that are pretty quick. And people will bring up like Jolly Medicham. I just rather support it in the speed and become that bulkier Pokemon that really only needs to set up against Rotom Mosh and try to seek out the advantages. You bring it in later game as a wall breaker and you're still going to be very strong. So I hope you guys enjoyed the video, and that's how you use Mega Medicham. One of my favorite Megas to use and one of the strongest Pokemon in the game because it just neutral KOs.
That was nice. Yeah.
Welcome back, Wolfpack. Rolos here, and this is how speed. On the rest of this being special defense, less special the third turn after using it, so it only keeps one turn off of rest, and we're not too tanky to begin with. So the first set that I'm thinking about is, again, very similar to Espeon, that the single sets are pretty much going to be Espeon sets with a little bit of tweaking, but not really too much, and it's Light Clay, Light Screen, Reflect, and Wish. That way you can Cleric for your team, you still have some form of Sustain, and then you can just kind of do whatever. Right here for the example, just initial set, I was thinking we can run a Calm Nature, and then go even split, so we have maxed out on the hit points, and then we split between the defense and special defense. That way we're really well rounded. We use Light Screen, Reflect depending on what our opponent is using against us, and I was thinking the Calm Nature because most of our weaknesses are going to be on that special side, so we can build up a bit of special resistance. But at the same time, you can always change around. You can feel, well, I can use Reflect, cover up against my physical. I don't really have to worry about too much on the physical side, and then you become more of a special defense tank and just try to work it out from there. Your last thing can be something offensive that you can also go for some kind of supportive qualities as well. Confuse Ray is going to be a little bit of mix, throughout the Confuse Ray. Gives you a chance to give you a safe switch into your next Pokemon coming in. You can set up that Wish as well. You also do have a couple of things that Espeon doesn't get. You have Tailwind. Tailwind is going to have that extra supportive quality that, once you set up, if you still have some time, or if you try to like mix in the Tailwind, you can then at least get some speed, get that Reflect, get that Light Screen before your opponent's next attack. And then that means that you can switch in rather safely to your ally because they have Light Screen, Reflect up, they're receiving a Wish if they take too much damage, and then they might have 1 or 2 turns of Tailwind. Xatu also has damage from Nightshade that Espeon doesn't necessarily have, and that's kind of it. So if you want to look at any other things that it can do, maybe just Toxic, that way at least you can at least throw some status down to your opponent before bouncing around the team, and that's kind of it. So some other things that Xatu can do is also going to be Calm Mind, Baton Pass, and then you just have to decide which aspects you want to take to it. That you can be a little more defensive or a little more offensive. Offensive, you can run that Stored Power. You're going to get stabbed from Stored Power, you're going to have Sustain from your Roost, and at least Roost is going to be pretty nice because it removes that Flying type weakness. So if you're faster than your opponent, you might not have to worry about that Ice, you might not have to worry about the Rock and the Electric for that turn, and it's just at least now you can, set up 3 on the Calm Mind, go for the huge Stored Power, and hope it's enough. Your EVs on this set are going to be more defensive invested, but at the same time you do have to be aware that you might need some special defense, so you can just kind of go Bold Nature, max out the hit points, put a lot into defense, a little bit in special defense, that way that Calm Mind boost, and then once you get a couple of Calm Mind boosts, you can decide, well, now it's time to get my ally going. You can kind of put this into a sweeper Pokemon, that way it just really speeds them up, and then you just try to look for the sweeps from there, or you can try to sweep more for yourself, that instead of Roost, you can run Giga Drain. Xatu gets Giga Drain as a move tutor, so you can kind of run it on those aspects. So if you're not worried about baton passing, you can put in Roost, and then now Xatu's just a setup sweeper, that if you do have a couple of Calm Minds, you're becoming kind of frustrating to knock out. You have Giga Drain and Roost Sustain, so you're dealing damage and doing that. Stored Power is going to cover it out really well, and that's kind of it. Other things, again, you can have Tailwind, so if you want to be more defensive, you can go Calm Mind, Baton Pass, and then it's kind of if you want to make an offensive move or not. We have Confuse Ray once again, that you can set up that Confuse Ray, and then you can bring in Tailwind. So that's just going to let you bounce out the Tailwind while also having Calm Mind. So that Pokemon that's going to be coming in might have a little extra turn of speed, might also get that opponent to hit itself, and now it can continue the sweep from there. So after looking at those single sets, yeah, it's just kind of a slightly inferior Espeon that doesn't really bring too much else to the table, which means that Xatu is probably going to want to run in double battles, and that's where it does have a couple of things that some other Pokemon don't really get, such as Simple Beam and Tailwind. Now what you want to do is you want to have your ally Pokemon protect, set up that Tailwind on the first turn. Now you have a good amount of speed boost for a couple turns. The great thing about Xatu is that with that Magic Bounce, it's not going to be able to get taunted, so the only way of really knocking it out is blowing it up immediately. And with a full defensive investment, that's going to be kind of tricky, especially if you have a very threatening Pokemon, potentially using Protect to absorb another hit. So that's going to be a Tailwind on your side, and then the Simple Beam. Simple Beam makes it to where the ally's ability becomes simple, so that means all you have to do is have them set up. If they're setting up Swords Dance, Dragon Dance, something like that, they're going to become really fast, really offensive, really quick, and that's where you can just support them with Confused Ray and Thunder Wave. As for the items, I like the idea of a Citrus Berry. Citrus Berry is going to give you a lot of burst health. It means that, you know, you're going to be really hard to kill up front, and then you just kind of start throwing out support from there. Also, a couple other cool things about Xatu is that with that Magic Bounce ability, even though it has a high amount of speed, you can still run it as some kind of Trick Room Pokemon. That with Magic Bounce, going to be a Pokemon that's very hard to taunt, going to be very reliable to set it up, and then you can maybe run it a bit more offensive. So Xatu is a bit of an unsuspecting Trick Room Pokemon, and then you can use Simple Beam after that, and that's kind of really all that there is to it. As for the nature on there, you'd probably want to go with a quiet nature. That way you can at least do something a bit more offensive. So Focus Sash, just to make sure you don't get immediately knocked out. Trick Room, and then whatever, Simple Beam, maybe Air Slash, that we can maybe try to go for some flinch hacks. 30% chance to flinch, still pretty decent. Confused Ray is going to build on top of that. And again, you can run, not Confide, Confused Ray. And again, you can really build on top of it with some more Simple Beam shenanigans. Dazzling Gleam is going to hit both opponents. Psychic is going to get stabbed. Something like that. Or you can just have Roost. That way you can keep him in the game for a while and try to reset that Trick Room as much as possible. Alright, so I hope you guys enjoyed this video, and that's how you use Xatu in Omega Ruby and Alpha Sapphire, and I hope you all have a nice day.
Feel the confidence to get closer. Dial Men Body Wash deeply cleans your skin and easily rinses away.
Welcome back.